Most people think that building wealth comes from big financial moves, picking the right stock, buying the perfect investment, timing the market just right. But honestly, when I look back at my own financial journey, the biggest progress that I ever made didn't come from big dramatic decisions. It came from boring habits that I repeated over and over and over again, like this one. And there's one habit on this list that made me more money than all others combined. I didn't learn that habit from success. I learned it from a really expensive mistake on one of my early real estate deals. I'll explain that story a little later on in the video, so make sure you stick around for that. But today I want to walk through 10 money habits that quietly build real wealth, and why these simple habits often matter way more than the flashy financial strategies that people talk about online. Habit number one is controlling lifestyle creep. One of the biggest traps that people fall into is that every time that their income increases, their lifestyle increases with it. You get a raise, you upgrade your house. You get a bonus, then suddenly you're shopping for a new car. And I'm guilty of it as well. And before you know it, your income has doubled, but your savings haven't moved at all. Wealthy people usually do the opposite. They let their income grow faster than their lifestyle. That gap between what you earn versus what you spend is where wealth is actually created. Habit number two is thinking in decades instead of months. Most people think about money in very short time frames. They think about this month's bill, next month's paycheck, or maybe their next vacation. But wealth builders usually zoom out much further. They ask questions like, where will this decision put me in 10 years? If I invest this money today, what could it turn into over the next decade? Because once you start thinking in long time horizons, your decisions start changing dramatically. Habit number three is simply financial awareness. This doesn't necessarily mean overcomplicated spreadsheets or detailed budgets. It means actually knowing what's going on with your money. Most people don't know how much they spend each month, how much they're saving, or what their net worth actually is. And if you're not aware of where your money is going, it becomes almost impossible to control where it ends up. Wealth building starts with awareness. Habit number four is something I call asset obsession. Wealthy people think differently about money. Instead of constantly asking, what can I buy? They ask, what can I own that produces income? That could be stocks, it could be real estate, it could be a business, but the key idea is that assets produce cash flow and grow in value over time. This shift in mindset alone can completely change your financial future. Habit number five is avoiding dumb debt. Now, not all debt is bad. Certain types of debt can actually help build wealth. For example, using leverage to buy an investment property that produces income can be incredibly powerful. And that's how I was able to get financially free, is mainly from real estate. But most debt people take on isn't productive. It's lifestyle debt, credit cards for things that don't hold value, car loans that stretches finances, financing purchases that don't actually improve your financial position. And wealthy people tend to be very intentional about what they borrow money for. Habit number six is patience with compounding. This is one of the hardest habits to develop because it requires long-term thinking. Most wealth is built slowly at first, but over time, the effects of compounding begin to accelerate. Investments grow, assets appreciate, cash flow increases, and what felt slow in the beginning eventually starts feeling like momentum. Habit number seven is intentional spending. Wealthy people don't necessarily avoid spending money. They just spend it on things that actually matter to them. Instead of trying to keep up with what everyone else is buying, they focus their spending on things that can improve their life or align with their priorities. Everything else gets cut. And over time, this keeps unnecessary spending from quietly draining their finances. Habit number eight is consistency over intensity. A lot of people look for big financial wins. They want one investment to change everything. But in reality, wealth is usually built through small decisions, repeated consistently over many years. Saving consistently, investing consistently, buying assets consistently. These actions may feel boring, but over time, they create powerful results. Now, earlier in the video, I mentioned that one of these habits actually came from a mistake I made early on in a real estate deal, and that brings us to habit number 9. And habit number 9 is taking action before you feel completely ready. Early in my investing journey, I almost walked away from a deal because I was overanalyzing everything. The numbers weren't perfect, there were risks, and I kept thinking I needed more information before moving forward. But eventually, I realized something important. If you wait until everything feels perfect, you often never start. That deal ended up becoming one of my best investments. And that is one of my rental properties that was older than what I wanted and a little more work than I wanted. But I ended up getting an amazing deal, and I bought the duplex for $175 in 2021, and it's now worth close to $300,000, and also cash flows me about $10,487 a year. That's net after expenses. And it's taught me that progress usually comes from taking thoughtful action, even when things aren't perfectly clear. And the final habit is understanding that money itself isn't the goal. Money is simply a tool that can provide options, a tool that can create freedom, a tool that can give you control over your time. The people who build real wealth usually understands this. They aren't chasing money for status, they're using money to build a life that they actually want. And when you step back and look at it, the habits that build wealth aren't flashy at all. They're quiet, they're consistent, and honestly, they're pretty boring. But those boring habits repeated over many years are often what quietly build real financial freedom.